Oh man, yo, what up, people? It's your boy, and I'm coming back, and I'm giving you guys a review for One Piece Chapter 685. And you know where I gotta start, right? I gotta start off with the ending, because that boy Zoro came in clutch. That boy Zoro came in clutch, man. Like, I'm not even a Zoro fanboy like that, You guys know I kind of keep going back and forth on which characters I like. But when Zoro has some shit like this, man, when he has some shit like this, when Monet is transforming into snow and she attacked Nico Robin from behind. She just got behind her and penetrated her. Nico Robin had no idea what was going on. And then all of a sudden, Zoro just shows up, blocks the attack, and says, "Hey, you guys get going. I got this right here." That is like the most alpha thing you can do, man. This was a hell of a way to end a chapter. There's no other way to even get around saying that. Like, that's one of the things I have to say when it comes to this arc, right? When it comes to this arc, Eiichiro Oda is doing a really, really good job of capturing your attention, even though he's kind of jumping around from scene to scene to scene. He still captures your attention, and then he ends the chapter in a way to where you're like, holy shit, what happens next? Why are you doing this to me? And see, I have the benefit. The benefit I have is I'm reading these chapters in batches. Whereas like when these were coming out, you had to read them week by week and you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? I would have gone crazy if I would have had to wait a whole nother week just to see what was gonna happen, man. Like that's absolutely crazy. Now, let's have a moment of silence and back all the way up. Okay, let's back up probably 5 or 6 pages from the ending, and we gotta talk about what's going on with my girl Nami, man. Because you guys know I'm a Nami lover. Okay, Nami lives matter. All right, so why they gotta freeze my girl like that, man? She took off the jacket. She's trying to do the right thing, and like what I really like, I'm not even gonna troll at this point. I started to, but I'm not even gonna troll. Like what I really like about this arc, of what you're seeing with the character of Nami, she was one of the first ones to realize something was going on with these kids who were in the Biscuits room. And it's almost as if like that's her nurturing spirit coming in. I know it's kind of crazy. Nami will knock the hell out of somebody. And so for me to say she's got nurturing spirit, but we kind of saw like the mama bear come out of her and it's still roaring, even though everything that's going on, she's still concerned about these kids. And I thought that was really interesting. I like that. Like one of the reasons, and I'm not even trolling right now, one of the reasons why I like reading Nami's character is, and especially Usopp too, the way Oda writes them is they're the normal people out the crew. Like they're not super strong. They have some abilities. Nami, when she has that staff, Nami can hang with some of the best of them, though at the same time, she lacks the physical strength because she doesn't have a devil fruit. And so that's a disadvantage. But she's the normal person of the crew. Now, I feel like her reaction is the reaction a lot of us would have if we were in that situation. And so, what's really, really interesting about that is the fact that when you look at where the stakes are and you look at the fact that Caesar has already said that, hey, this batch of children, these experiments, they're failures, go get me some new kids. And that's the whole reason why Momonosuke, I know I'm saying the name wrong. I haven't watched the anime episode for this, as you guys know, reading the manga, I prefer manga over anime. So I'll check the anime after the fact and kind of see if I like how they said the name there. And I'll go back and probably in later chapters and just kind of reference it. But what's really interesting is we know that he's going to do away with these kids, and it's so sad because like the government's hiding the fact that it's through Vergo, they're hiding the fact that these kids are going missing, and he's just treating them like expendable objects. And that's really heartbreaking. That's really, really heartbreaking because we see in this chapter that when it comes to children, there's nothing more innocent than a child's perception. Because like when you got the one kid who is the son of the samurai, he's just like, I have no name. I need no food. Look at me. Like he's just talking. He's got the stubborn nature, and it's just like his father. And what's really interesting about that is like kids, they imitate their parents. They imitate their parents, and not just their parents, but they draw on different things that they see from people who are close to them. people that they look up to, people they admire. They take certain things. It's because children, when they're going through that developmental phase, they're still learning how to be themselves. And so I thought that that was pretty interesting that, Oda would even go this route. And I also thought it was pretty cool. You could draw like a parallel into Luffy and that kid. And the reason why I say that is like, go back to chapter one, right? In the Romance Dawn chapter. You get this chapter where in there, Luffy is hungry and he's just casually eating the devil fruit, right? Casually eating it. And it's not like with Buggy, where like in the first volume where we find out Buggy accidentally ate the devil fruit because Shanks snuck up on him or whatnot. Luffy, it was just a honest mistake. With this kid here, it's an honest mistake, and yet their lives are drastically different. Okay, drastically different. And I think part of the reason for that is like Luffy was around someone like Shanks who there's no ill will there. He had a devil fruit, and it remains to be seen if Shanks was planning on eating that devil fruit himself or what his whole plan was. But this is the thing. I think it'd be pretty cool if Shanks would have ate the devil fruit. But this is what's really interesting about this, though, right? Like, Luffy could have just as easily been one of those kids who was kidnapped and gone missing. Now, granted, Garp probably would have raised hell, and that's probably why somebody like Luffy wasn't targeted. But what's really interesting about that is the fact that just that parallel, because that could have just as easily been Luffy. And I don't even think Luffy understands that, but at the same time, through his interactions with the kid, I feel like that's one of the things Oda subconsciously was hammering in on us that, roles could have been reversed because the way that he was drawn looking at that devil fruit and casually eating it, the artificial one, kind of mirrors what we saw with Luffy. And I thought that's pretty cool that, all these years later, Oda just reaches back for that. Now, the thing I found very fascinating is just like with the character interactions, right? I like how Luffy is just looking. He's like, oh, the eel. Oh, that looks tasty. Luffy think about some sushi, but then at the same time, Luffy almost has that childlike innocence to him as well. And Luffy is just like, hey, wait a second. There's supposed to be a little boy speaking out your ass. Why can't I see feet out your ass? And it's because Luffy logic, okay? This would be one of those Luffy big dummy moments if Luffy did not manage to get through to this kid. And he says like, hey, don't even worry about this, right? Like my crew, they're gonna find everything that's going on. So don't even worry about that. My crew, they're gonna get to these kids. We're gonna get off this island. Just get my ass up that chute. And he says, well, hold on, you ate a devil fruit, right? Hey, little man, don't even be upset. Don't even be upset because you can just transform back and you can just see it with that little kid, right? That little kid, in that dragon form, that little kid is just so heartbroken at first. And then when he hears it, Luffy gave him a little bit of hope. And what I found interesting about that is that's another sign of a good leader. Luffy assessed the situation. He might have just been stating a very obvious thing, but he assessed the situation and then he proceeded to make a change. And that was really good. And he proceeded to give inspiration. He proceeded to get that kid to do what he needed him to do. That's stuff you can't teach. That's stuff you can't teach. And I think that shows you why the Straw Hats work so well as a part of being in Luffy's crew. So I think that that's really interesting. And what I also like about that is as they start flying up the chute, right? As they start flying up, you get all these little cut scenes, right? Like all these like side panels of the different members of the Straw Hats and the Navy working together. And it's just like you see all these lines blurring. And I just love what Oda does because that's that age-old adage of, the enemy, my enemy is my friend. And at the end of the day, they have to get off this island. And what's really crazy is that you got somebody like Law fighting alongside Smoker against Vergo, against someone who's supposed to be in the Navy. Like, this is the ultimate crazy shit. That would be like in DC Comics, right? If you had, oh, this is a bad example, but I'm going to use it. That would be like if you had Batman and the Joker fighting against Darkseid. Now, Darkseid is, pretty much for the most part inherently evil. I would need somebody who is masquerading as being good, but they're actually evil. I can't think of anybody off top. But that would just be like Batman and the Joker teaming up to take down a common enemy. It's just like, that's something you don't see very often. So I like what we see here. That's actually really good writing on Oda's part. So I just want to know from you guys, like, What were your thoughts about this whole chapter? And how do you feel about the fact that Caesar is already planning on another batch of children for his experiments, man? What are your thoughts? And do you kind of agree with me, on my earlier points that this is Oda kind of talking about the dark web and all that? But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share. Thank you so much for watching all the way into the end. Have an awesome day, guys.